Episode number 193 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. So, if you're currently trying to conceive, you've probably at this point heard how important vitamin D is for your fertility health and also for pregnancy. In this episode, I'm going to talk about vitamin D, why it's important, and why so many people are deficient, what things that you should think about in order to really truly absorb vitamin D. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. So vitamin D is an important fat-soluble vitamin, and it's something that we eat, we can have in food, and we also have through the sun, and also a hormone that our bodies make. So it's important, if you are going to have supplements of vitamin D, that you have fats as well, so that your body's able to absorb it. So there's certain vitamins that are water soluble, and then certain vitamins that are fat soluble, which means that they need fat in order to absorb into your body. So vitamin D deficiency actually has been linked with unexplained infertility and also frequent miscarriages. And there are certain things that you want to look for also that may impact your absorption of vitamin D. So number one, how much vitamin D should you have in your blood levels? So typically they say 30 or over ng in your labs. And some people even say 50, up to 50. You should be at around 50 if you're trying to conceive. People have different opinions of it, but it should be at least 30. And that would be the normal range. So there are many different reasons why people are not absorbing vitamin D. So some of the common ones are if you have melanin in your skin, a lot of melanin, it's actually going to affect how you're absorbing it from the sun. So you'll need more sun in order to absorb the vitamin D. And ultimately, the sun is the best way to get vitamin D, and I'll be talking about that in a little bit. Another thing that can impact your ability to absorb vitamin D is magnesium deficiency. So this is something that a lot of people don't really know about or not aware. And to be honest with you, I've even seen that doctors don't know about this, and they'll prescribe for people to take vitamin D if their blood levels are low, but they don't mention magnesium. So if you're deficient in magnesium, you may be deficient in vitamin D, even if you get sun, even if you're taking extra vitamin D, because in order to absorb vitamin D, you need magnesium. So magnesium is a really important mineral in order to help you absorb, but it's also really beneficial for fertility overall. And one of the things with magnesium is that it is not very easy to detect. It's not like you can use blood work to figure out if you're deficient in magnesium. So a lot of times you may have certain symptoms like headaches, you might crave chocolates. So chocolate actually is very rich in magnesium. So your body might actually crave it because it needs that magnesium. And you might have anxiety or difficult sleeping or muscle spasms or muscle tightness. So those are definitely things that are correlated with a magnesium deficiency. Doesn't mean that you'll have all of these, but sometimes people who are deficient in magnesium might have some. Magnesium is also really important it actually helps with uterine lining and also helps with cramps, menstrual cramps. So magnesium is a really important mineral that we need in our body, and we can get it through food. And most of the time, if you're deficient, you're going to need a supplement. So that is another thing to keep in mind about absorbing vitamin D. Another thing is also people who are overweight tend to be deficient. Now, is it because they're overweight? Well, they say that fat actually absorbs a lot of the vitamin D. So that might be the reason why people who are overweight may need more vitamin D, or vitamin D actually might help their metabolism as well. So it kind of works hand in hand. Another thing to consider is the health of your gut. So if your gut is not absorbing nutrients, it may also have a difficult time absorbing vitamin D. So one of the ways to bypass that is if you have enough magnesium in your system and you're actually supplementing with magnesium and getting sunlight, you're able to absorb vitamin D or make vitamin D in your body. And my suggestion, sunlight's really, really important. It's important for fertility. It's important for your circadian rhythm. It's important for overall health, your metabolism. And in Chinese medicine terms, it's the most yang aspect of our ecosystem. So within our nature, the sun is the most yang thing that you'll find. And that is where you can get yang energy, yang and yin, which I've talked about before, yin and yang. Yin is very cooling. It's more of the night. It's more of the moisture. It's more feminine. It's like the egg. Whereas yang is active. It's like the sperm, and it's hot and warm, and there's a lot of movement with yang energy. So yang energy also helps create more qi in your body. And the sun, if you get it early in the morning, can really benefit that energy production in your cells. So basically what it does is it actually produces melatonin in your cells, in your mitochondria. And melatonin acts as an antioxidant to protect your mitochondria, which the mitochondria in the cells is what produces energy. And what they found is as people age, their mitochondria gets more oxidative stress and it's not as protected. And it also lowers its form of energy, which is ATP. That all goes down. And so this is one of the reasons they think that egg quality declines with age, is because the ATP overall declines. And this is the same for men and women. But getting sunlight is really important. And what I suggest is early morning. So between 8 and 9, I'm talking about like summer months. If it's winter months, you don't have to worry about when you get sun because you're not going to get sunburned. And ultimately, the one thing that you want to be careful or be aware of is not to have sun in the hot hours. So really from like in a hot climate, I mean, from about 10:30 or so till about 4, you want to be aware. And the safe times to get it is ultimately before 9 is ideal. And then after 4 or 5, depending on how hot it is. And you'll feel it. It'll be uncomfortably hot if it's not a good time to be out in the sun. But absorbing the sunlight either early in the morning or later in the day is actually the time where you're able to process that vitamin D and make more melatonin in your cells. And so melatonin we usually consider as a sleep hormone, and it is. But this melatonin, it works differently. It actually goes in the cells. It's not something that makes you sleepy at that moment. It actually works to protect the cells, and it works as an antioxidant to protect the mitochondria. So it is really important for energy production. It's important for your metabolism. And the sun overall is important for creating vitamin D in your body. And that's the best way for you to really get vitamin D. It actually is much better than just taking supplements. If you're able to absorb it through the sun, that's the most ideal way for you to absorb vitamin D. The great thing about getting vitamin D from the sun is you can't overdose. You can't overdose, and it's something that your body will take what it needs. So ultimately, that's the best way. In some cases, and in colder climates, or if you have darker skin, you're not able to absorb it as much, you may need to supplement on top of that. Now, I'm not going to give you numbers. That's something that you want to talk about with your doctor as far as dosage. And I would definitely suggest, if you are going through fertility challenges and you haven't checked already, I would definitely go and get your blood serum vitamin D levels and see how that is, because that in itself can actually impact fertility. So one question that I do get often is, what is the difference between vitamin D3 and vitamin D2. So a lot of times if you are supplementing, you'll find two different forms of vitamin D, D2 and D3. So D2 is taken from plants, so it's sourced from plants and yeast, while D3 comes from animal sources. So D3 is a better version. It's a more superior form of D than D2. So if you do get vitamin D, I always suggest to do D3. One study showed that taking D3 twice a week for 5 weeks was more effective at raising vitamin D levels than the same amount for vitamin D2. So definitely something to consider, but that I just thought I'd throw out there if you are going to be supplementing with vitamin D. So it is really important to get vitamin D. That's why I created an episode today about it, because it really can make a huge difference. So people who bring up their vitamin D can actually increase their chances of conceiving. And also, if you've had recurrent miscarriages, it's a really important vitamin to know that you're not deficient in, because being deficient in D can contribute to frequent miscarriages. So this is an important thing that if you're going through it, and it's such a simple thing to fix, then you might as well know what your levels are. So it's an easy thing to fix. It's something that you can ask your doctor. Sometimes a lot of the doctors, especially reproductive endocrinologists, will check for vitamin D, but not all doctors will check. So this is why it's important for you to ask for these things and advocate for yourself. I can't say enough about self-advocacy at the doctors. Many doctors are very thorough, but not everybody sees everything. And it's really important that you actually notice and pick up on things and ask for tests. And sometimes you'll be met with resistance. So I would definitely persist on what you want and get everything that you can possibly do. Leave no stone unturned and get all the information that you need so that you're you're in a place of power and you're able to have all the information you need to move forward and know what could be missed. And sometimes it's such a small thing that's missed that it's overlooked. So I hope that helps you, and be sure to get your early morning sun. It really makes a difference, and it also helps with the serotonin in your brain, so it makes you happier. So sunshine really is very important, and we've been taught or conditioned to be afraid of the sun. Do not be afraid of the sun. Get early morning sun. Just make sure that it's at a time that is safe. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and have a beautiful day. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.